Can't wait for you to love me. 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 I know you'll drive me crazy, but you'll still be my baby. Feels good knowing you won't leave me. Can't wait for you to be there.
Hello, dudes, dudettes, non-binaries, and everyone in between, as we are an inclusive podcast. This is your host, Tasha Farmer speaking, and thank you for joining me today. Welcome back to Talks with Tosh, episode 2. Thanks for coming back, guys. I'm excited to get started on week 2. So I thought where I would begin is going back to that topic from last week, moving when you feel like your location or environment needs to change. I had a DM from somebody, and I thought that their response was unique and also relatable, but very different than mine. And I thought that I would share because I thought it was wonderful and important to share. And of course, these will always be anonymous. I will never share who you are. So here is what they said. I felt a memory pop up when you were talking about that feeling of being pulled somewhere and why, but what came to mind for me was a little different. I had an ex who I loved very dearly, but we were long distance, and a year in, that was beginning to crush us. She wanted me to move to a small central town, and even though I felt very strongly pulled down there, I knew not moving was the best decision for my future. And if I had, I wouldn't have had all of the memories and friends that I have today. I do truly believe that if your heart and soul are telling you to go somewhere or do something, you should, but if your heart is telling you that it won't flourish in an environment that's being presented to you, you have the full right to not choose that environment. I really liked that response. I definitely felt like it was relatable. I know I definitely related to that, as I personally, I'm from Eugene, Oregon, which I said before, but I moved up to Portland back when I was about 22 with my ex, my last boyfriend. And I felt a pull to go up there, even though my heart didn't want to leave because my family's here. And it's always been really hard for me to disconnect from my family, which I count as a good thing, but it also made it really hard to be independent. So I'm grateful that I listened to that, like the part of my heart that was like, you need to go, like you need to do something different, because I would not be who I am today. I would not be where I am today. And I would definitely not be back in Eugene happy and satisfied to be here if I had not taken that time to get out of here for a little while. It's all about perspective. It's all about the time that you give yourself to grow and change and to try something new. But I am a big proponent of change. Now that I have grown into the human that I am today, I prefer change. I need it once in a while in certain pieces of my life. But in this case, from this person who wrote in, they were saying that this type of change would be detrimental in one way or another. And I really respect that. And I think that's also important to address that, yes, change is good, but sometimes change is bad. You know, if your heart is telling you something's wrong, listen to it. You've got to make sure that you're going to flourish in the next place that you choose to go, whether it's change or not. Thank you to that person who DM'd me. Thanks for writing in. I appreciate your contribution to the podcast. And let's see, what do we got next? Yes. Okay. So I've got a few questions from people in my DMs and or emails, just wanting to know a little bit more about me, my experience in Oregon, California, elsewhere. So it's kind of going to be like a travel and people podcast episode, I guess we'll call it. First question is, what do I do that brings me joy? I love this question. So simple, so cute. I love it. Overall, my biggest things that bring me joy are music, talking with other people, particularly my friends and my family, spending time with my friends and my family, yoga has saved my life time and time again, and meditation, everything in that area. I'm very spiritual in that respect. Oh man, going out to dinners. I love trying new food. I love trying new drinks. I love going to wineries and breweries. And last, but certainly not least, is traveling. Another question kind of leading off of that is what my daily life looks like in Oregon versus what it looked like in California when I was living down there. I love that question because it is very different. In Oregon, I've always been very chill overall, very family oriented, very low key. I mean, I've always been one to go out. I love to go dancing. I love to go bar hopping. I love to watch movies with my friends. I loved going to the beach and like to Bend, Oregon. It's a really fun place for wineries and breweries. So those are all like really, really important things for me as in Oregon. But in California, it's like that times 1,000, especially because I had no family down there. So my day to day in Cali was more like, okay, during the week I would try to discipline myself and like cook meals at home and try to stay in and not spend money. And then the weekends I would eat and do whatever I wanted. So I would go out to dinners and lunches and brunches and get drinks with my friends and like go to all the new clubs and bars. Cause again, I just love to go dancing. That's my favorite thing. That's always my goal when I go out at night. So yeah, that's kind of that's the Cali vibe. It was very busy. I was very exhausted. By the end of my time down there, I was going out during the week, even just trying to enjoy it right before I realized that I was going to come back up. So I'm excited to be back in Eugene because it's just a lot more chill. I'm exhausted. Like I said, it was a lot of work. It's a lot of like upkeep with all of the people that just are constantly going. I feel like a big difference that I noticed between Oregon and California is that Californians are just always going. They're busybodies. People in Oregon are a lot more go with the flow, slow paced, low key, which I feel like neither is worse than the other. I think I'm just ready to start kind of chilling out a little bit. And then when I want to go all out, I'll travel. Speaking of traveling, I have another question here. It's kind of a lot in one, but I'll try to condense it as much as I can. So this person asked, have I noticed any other countries with similar people to California or Oregon? Leading on from that, do they seem more welcoming and vulnerable in other countries? This person's asking because most of their friends in California, that's where this person's from, are from out of state, and they do think that the Cali people are more superficial. I thought that was interesting because I feel like I've kind of made it a point to say not everybody was superficial down in Cali, but there were a lot of people that were superficial. It's true. There were. Not all of the people are that way, but to the person who wrote in, you know what? Maybe that's a good point. Maybe it's the people that I became closer with, like you, were from out of state. I'm starting to realize that so were my friends that I made down there that were real ones, were not actually from San Diego, except maybe like one of them. So all great questions. Let's see how I can get started on answering that. For those of you that don't know, I'm an avid traveler. I've traveled a lot. I would like to travel more, but you know, life's life. Taking time off work is no joke. Money is a thing. So yes, but I'm very, very blessed to have traveled a lot in my life. And I'll start by listing off the places I've been so far. Let's see. When I was a child, I went to Mexico, but I barely remember that, so that doesn't count. And then Belize, if you haven't heard of that, it's gorgeous. It's kind of like a Mexico in that area, white sandy beaches and all that. Let's see. And then, as I said before, I traveled Europe with my ex. Oh, I did not say that before, but yeah, I traveled with my ex really soon after we met. We just decided to travel Europe after we graduated college. It was really cool, and it was one of the most difficult and rewarding experiences ever because we backpacked. And it was fantastic. We got to meet all kinds of different people when we were there. And we traveled through, England, Ireland, Germany, stopped in Switzerland for a day, traveled Italy for 2 weeks, and then finished in Paris. And it was fantastic. Okay, and then after that, I went back to Italy almost 2 years ago now for another 2 weeks around Florence and Rome and all of that. Gorgeous, fantastic. Italy is my favorite place on the planet. If I could live in another country, it would definitely be Italy, just from my experience with the people, the food, the accents, the history. It's fantastic. Definitely a goal of mine to keep going back as much as I can and exploring more of Italy because it is just endless and beautiful. I've traveled around the country too, up to Washington, Cali, obviously. I've been to Texas a lot. I have family down there. I went to Georgia off of Jekyll Island, and I got to go to Savannah. Yeah, I think that's about it for everywhere I've traveled. But as I said, I'm very well traveled. I'm so grateful for that. I know it's not open for everybody to travel that way. So I'll just start by saying that. But getting back to the question, we'll start. Have I noticed any other countries with similar people to Cali? Off the top of my head, not really. It's very different because in California, I noticed that people are particularly more, I don't know, they're less wanting to get to know you and they're kind of in their own space, which is fine. People are just people want things from you more often than not in California. Like they want to be friends with you for reasons. It's not just because like you're a cool person or whatever the case. Unfortunately, I've had some rough experiences down there with friends, which I'll get into in another episode, but it was not always pleasant. So thinking about people in other countries, I guess since I've spent the most time in Italy, I'll talk about how people were there. In my experience, they were all very kind, very welcoming, very sweet, but also to the point, just ready to like get everything out of the way, talk about what's what. Like the host of our Airbnb when we got to our Airbnb when we arrived in Italy, our lady was so kind and so sweet and so accommodating and walked around the house with us and made sure we had everything we need for like an hour. And I believe she lived not far from the property. That's another thing about Italians is that they're very, about opening either their own homes or making sure that they make it seem like their own home. They're very sweet, kind human beings, but they also do not take bullshit at all. They will not deal with, they've said, like that lady said that she's dealt with a lot of people from America who are, not respectful or just don't care to have conversations. They expect a little bit of conversations. They just want you to get to the point and not lollygag as the lady so sweetly used it. So that's what I noticed about Italians. That was one. There were some people that were more short than others, but it was never in a mean, disrespectful way. It was more in a way of like, okay, I have things to do. I can't stick around for you for 5 years. Like, come on, we got to go. But also thank you so much for being here, kind of a vibe. People, particularly in restaurants, were my favorite because they sit there and they kind of watch you. It really is a thing. They watch you when you're eating the meal and they want to make sure you're enjoying it. I feel like they're probably low-key judging a little bit because we're Americans and we don't know how to eat Italian food right. But I didn't even care. I was like, you can judge me. I'm the stupid, dumb American. It's fine. Cool. Look at me, It was a pleasant experience. Like people there seemed to be very kind, cool, collected. Overall, like seemed to know who they were very chill. So that was my experience. I feel like they're very, very different. I think people in other countries are just particularly not like Americans. We don't have the same priorities in certain ways that people in other countries do. I think in my experience in Italy, people were just ready to take care of you, cook for you. My ex and I stayed in a hostel in Naples where this man, Giovanni, it's funny, but that's literally his name. He owned a hostel and it was his own house and he just put bunk beds in there and he would just have everybody over. And every single night that we stayed there, he cooked us dinner on the rooftop that he had. He would make us do it. But the whole time, here's the straight to the point thing. While he was cooking us dinner, he was totally making fun of us, even though he enjoyed our company, but he was making fun of us as he should. Like we're Americans. We don't know nothing about their culture. We're just chilling. Like it was wonderful. He made fun of me because I had an eye patch, which that's a story for another time. But yeah, I had an injury to my eye when we were in Italy traveling. It's a whole thing. It was a disaster, but he made fun of me. He called me Cyclops. Like they just don't give a shit. They really don't. And it's super funny. So like they can hurt your feelings, I guess. I could say in particularly Italy, a little bit more than they might in America. They might seem a little less sensitive, but it's just because they're like a little bit stronger than someone who's really sensitive like me. I don't take things personally, but definitely things can hurt my feelings once in a while if it's said a certain way, which is okay. Like that happens. That's who I am. It's okay for me to be sensitive. But I really had to check myself when Italians spoke to me because they are just, as I said, very to the point. But overall, Italians are kind, amazing human beings, and that's part of the reason why I would live there. Before I end up rambling about Italy for a billion years because I love it so much, I'm going to end it there. But thank you so much for the questions this week. I really appreciate those who wrote in. I took everything you said to heart, and I have such gratitude for the people who are reaching out to start, and I will keep reading whatever people ask as we go, and just keep creating more topics because there's just so much I want to talk about and touch on. And thank you so much to all of you listeners out there who are checking in on me and wanting to listen to my voice. Hopefully it is the podcast voice that you so dream to hear. And if not, just let me know and I'll stop talking. Just kidding, I won't. I don't care what you think. Also kidding, I care what you think a little bit. Anyway, thank you so much for listening, you guys. If you have any comments or questions that you'd like to DM me about, you can go ahead and follow me on Instagram, which is Talks with Tosh Podcast, and you can DM me there. I will also have stories up where you guys can put private questions into. And you can also email me at talkswithtoshpodcast@gmail.com. I will answer either of those. I check those as often as I can. So go ahead and do that. I would really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I will see you on YouTube next Thursday. Bye.